Welcome, fellow game developers, to another episode of Artificially Inked. My boomer shooter finally has a title. I have deemed the project Undid Sentence because what is worse than a zombie apocalypse but being trapped in prison during a zombie apocalypse? And in this game, we won't be playing your standard Space Marine, bounty hunter, action hero type. Nope, just a normal Joe who's locked behind bars trying to serve out his sentence when all hell breaks loose. Hopefully I can create some fun, engaging gameplay, and we can tell a really cool story in the process. I worked all day yesterday on this project from the time my alarm went off until I went to bed, which is good because I covered a lot of what I wanted to talk about in today's video. I tied up a whole bunch of loose ends and solved a whole bunch of problems. But in the comments, people have been asking about state machines and scripts. And I tried to do this all in one take. There's too much, so we're going to split this up. So since I was working on state machines today, we'll talk about state machines. All right, and I'm here on Pixel Wolf unofficial wiki page for Easy FPS Editor. This is the first stop. I call this the manual XL because the old manual's here, the updated manual's here, and a bunch of assets. There's a whole bunch of links, all sorts of free assets and free tools, a list of games that are made with the engine so you can see what other people are doing and see what this game engine is capable of. Now, what do states do? States basically are running in the back end. They are controlling what state your weapon is in and in what animations are played with your weapon, such as your fire and your reload and such. It does the same thing for decorations because we can make destructible decorations. So it controls all of those animations. You can also make all sorts of animated decorations because of that, just kind of exploiting that side of things. And then also your enemies, what state your enemies are in and what animations they are playing. So there's a link here on the wiki for states. Excuse me. And if we scroll down, let me get rid of my beautiful face here so we can see this a little better. There's an example of basically what is going on in the back end for your enemies. Since I worked on enemies today, I figured this is the easiest because this is the one I've had the most time with. So I can show you guys some examples and hopefully inspire you guys to do something cool with your enemy types. So basically, what we're seeing right here, let's get rid of this. What we're seeing right here is the basic setup for an enemy. So if we go over and we set up a new enemy, like we go to enemy settings, let's say we're going to set up this first zombie here. By setting him up and importing his sprites and all of his sounds, all of that stuff is stored. And then this is the basic math that goes on in the background for that enemy. So it calls to where that enemy is stored and how many frames he has up here. So we got image. Enemy would be replaced by the enemy's name. So if it was zombie, it would be zombie. And frame 0 through frame 12. Now that's from idle to death. And we've got the first state, which is idle. Since he's idle, that very first frame is 0. We don't have any special animations for C. So when he sees this, he will just play the idle. And then the next state, he goes into a chase. And these frames that are set up right here, frame 1, 2, 3, and 4, these are all of the walking. And this is what they look like. So no matter what you have your enemies saved as, where you're saving them on your computer, we go to our projects, we go to sprites, and we go to enemies. This is how the engine is storing them. So let's say we got our fat zombie right here. Idle is 0. First walk is 1. Second walk 2, 3, 4, so on, all the way down to 12, which is when we've beat the tar out of him and he's laying on the ground dead. So that's what they're calling to here. So we've got these 12 animation frames. Frame 0 on the idle, frame 0 on the C, frame 1 on the first walk, and then we've got frame 5 for the attack. And then it just kind of goes through this situation where it cycles through these until his health is at 0, and then we get this frame 12 down here. So we've all kind of seen this in action, but just to drive the point home, got a little test deal down here. See, he's idle right now. He sees me. He chases me. Attacks. I attack him. And we just keep attacking until his health is 0, and he plays through all of his animations. And he just keeps cycling that until that whole dance is over with. All right, so let's get rid of him. We can. And let's put... Oh, that's so weird how that does that. It like glitches and it deletes the floor. So let's put the floor back. Let's put an alternative version of that. So what I've done is I've set myself up a script where I have the image. I've got this murder zombie alternative because I wanted an alternative state. And I've got these same 12 animations. It goes through all of these: the idle, the see, the chase, the attack. But then on the hurt, I have the section, instead of over here where we have hurt going to chase, I've set him up. There's another state you can put them in for a flee. So I've just used basically down here in the flee state, the same animations, the same walk animations. So this is what this will look like. And this is the things that you can do with the state machine. You can kind of change the behavior of your characters. So not every one of the characters you drop in do the exact same thing. So he's idle, he sees me, he's going to attack, I hit him, and now he's going to flee. But then he comes right back to the chase because I have a C chase. And he'll go away, and he'll come right back. And he'll just cycle through this, and we'll play this dance until I beat him to death. And this will give you some variation. So now you don't have to have 15 different enemy types. You can have one enemy type with different behaviors, and it will give some variation to your game, especially for basic enemies like that. Basic, that way the player knows that, hey, this guy's going to do one of many actions. I'm not exactly sure. One thing I always reference is good old Gears of War. They did a really good job that very first game about having all these different behaviors for the enemy types. So they only had like 3 or 4 enemy types, but they would do something different almost every time depending on what the situation was. Another thing that you can do with this is I've created these mice. Let's put these in here. And then now what the mice will do, if we go to mice, I have not given them a death animation, but the same situation. I go image, mouse, and then I've got 4 frames set up for them. So if I come in here and I look, I think I have them set up as an enemy type. Yes, I do, right here. Mouse. I got mouse 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So total of 5 frames, but 0 through 4. Then we've got an idle, we've got a C. I've got them set up for a flee, so they'll run away. And then they do flee, and then they'll look for me again. And when they see me again, they'll actually chase. And I did this just so that'll be more sporadic. If you just leave it on flee, they would just always walk away from you. So that's something you could do too. You could put some non-threatening enemies in, like almost like a bird. You know, you walk towards birds and they just fly away. That would be something cool to do. But this is what this looks like in action. So they're basically enemies. You know, they won't attack me because they don't have an attack state. They won't do damage if they did attack because I set their attack to 0. But they kind of see me. This one will come towards me, and then he'll run away. And then I can still hit them. They have no death animation, so they won't die. But you could do this with, also you could create NPCs that, let's say some stuff is popping off and you're shooting guns and you just want them to kind of sporadically run away. Of course, I would give them death animations so you can kill them so they aren't just invincible. But these are some cool alternatives that you can do with your characters. I do have some soldiers set up that way also, but one of them is crashing the game, so I gotta find out what was going on with that situation. But I thought that this would be super helpful, like this, to explain what is actually happening with the state machine. I mean, the same thing is kind of happening for your weapon up here. You know, it's calling to whatever image that weapon is. It's calling for the sound, the fire, and the reload. And then it's going through all of those frames that you set it up. When you press attack, it means when you click the mouse button and the weapon goes off, all of the frames that'll go. So you can set up some pretty advanced controls for your weapons and your enemies, and you can add some variety to your games. And that's the big thing that I'm attempting to do right now is I will have large enemy pools, ton of different enemy types, but when you put 10 of the same guy in the deal, they'll, especially melee enemies, they'll dogpile on you. Like, here's an example. We'll go ahead and we'll play an example of that real quick. We'll put the same enemy type in here that does the same thing. I may actually die. These guys may eat me alive. But I just wanted to show. See how they kind of like, they'll dogpile real easy. They don't have a lot of alternate actions. They all kind of just doing the same thing. So, I mean, that makes it challenging on its own, but if you want the enemies to interact differently with the player and kind of spread out and do different things, that way the game feels more alive and it makes the player think more. That way they're not just pulling them up in a hallway and just beating them up one by one. You want them to have different actions, and this is a way that you can do that. So that right there is state machines in a nutshell. Like I said, everybody just get in there and give it a try. See what you can come up with. Test, trial and error, and just have fun with it and make some cool stuff. All right, that's it for this video. I'm signing out.